Oh my God. Did you guys hear? Carolinian Freedom Wall 2953. Dear LCS students, for months of knowing you, I finally have the urge to tell you this. Dang, you guys are woke. You're woke, guys.
I
Welcome to
mean,
LITOK.
I don't think woke is like a compliment
I don't know
anymore.
anymore. Like, there's people, yeah. Woke
Welcome to
is.
LITOK. Music plays.
LITOK.
Yes. Hi, I'm Sam.
I'm Mackie.
And I am Meg.
This is LITOK. Yay! Second
Yay!
episode.
Episode 2.
So, what do you guys think? Do you guys think we're woke?
I don't like
I
that word.
Me either.
Yeah.
It's
But maybe let's just give the OP the benefit of the doubt. I think like they meant it in a good way. I hope.
yeah.
I mean, kung ano man,
I hope.
yeah.
Hey, Anand, did you really think that it was a positive? I don't know. We have our own perspective on what that meant, but
Did you feel like flattered?
I don't think it was with malice.
I guess.
I think like kanang the Americans have like made woke this really ugly thing. Like you don't want to be
Yeah,
yeah. But like
yeah.
when you hear in the Philippines, like what's the Filipino word? Mulat, mulat ang mata. So I think it's not inherently bad, but yeah, the reputation has kwana. We're
Um,
not problematic. That's all we're gonna say. Right, guys?
We're like on the brink.
We're not problematic.
But we're never gonna
right,
go
guys?
over the brink.
Okay, sure. That's my thing. We're not problematic.
yeah.
Mackie, you took too long to respond.
Sam is our president. Are you sure we're not
Of
problematic?
course. Come on, guys.
Then yeah, we're basically angels.
It's Halloween, guys. When this is coming out, it's gonna be October 31st. So happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Halloween! Ay.
I hope your midterms were okay. I hope USC days were fun. As of recording, USC days has not happened yet, so we don't know what hell awaits us for now. But how about midterms? How are your midterms, guys? We have the same midterms, but how was
Yeah,
yours?
I think I did fine. I didn't think too much about it. I just let it pass. And I literally forgot what I did last week.
I was just sick the whole week.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what happens, man. Like the second year onwards, midterms week just, it just,
It's like a blur
yeah, it
now.
just blubbers around.
You're stressed and then you just forget whatever happened.
Yeah.
I just let it happen to me.
Yeah, you just move on
Yeah.
eventually.
But I think we got lucky with our majors. You guys have minors, so I don't know. Those exams
Yeah.
were weird, but like, yeah. So yeah, and it's spooky season, guys. Do you guys like Halloween? Do you like spooky
I
season?
love spooky
Halloween.
season. Huh?
You don't?
Do you not like? You
I
don't
don't
like?
I don't not like it. I just don't feel anything.
Do you
Oh.
like the horror spooky season in general?
Don't you like watching
I
like
mean, like,
scary movies and then?
Any time of the year works for me.
In the Philippines,
That's probably really disappointing.
I don't know.
too.
I feel so festive about Halloween.
what Meg is saying, if you're in the Philippines, every day is horrifying.
He's not. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
All right, so
I just look at the camera like I'm in the office.
yeah, that's what I've been doing too. Oh, this is so cool. We're in the new set, guys. We feel very bougie right now.
Yeah.
Bougie.
Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah. Besides our host here, of course, our queer seer is back, the man behind the laptop. Hopefully, he'll stay quiet this time.
He said something before this.
Yeah, he did. Okay.
It's taking all his energy.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, what do you have there?
As always, take everything we're about to say with a grain of salt. We didn't do any research. I kinda did, but I didn't. So yes.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that we're actually talking about Halloween now.
Yeah, this is LITOK. We don't do research here. So like yeah, I just have a few things. This topic for today's episode is about true crime because that's for the past few years that's been
Love that
the
topic.
thing, true crime, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
I think we'll talk about this in three aspects. Talking about like just adapting real life events, and then we'll talk about true crime documentaries, and then we'll talk about true crime narrative fictions. and all the ethics and problematic or not so problematic things about it. So baseline ra guys, what is your relationship with true crime?
I feel like it needs more, like, more being sensitive, because it is a sensitive topic.
Yeah,
It needs a better way of, like, a better approach to it.
very.
What do you like?
You know Dahmer, right?
Yeah, Jeffrey.
That was, I don't know, it was kind of messy for me
Yeah.
because I don't know, like some people treated it as if it was just fiction because like they didn't really talk about how what happened after all these happened, because it was just like they were living in the moment of what happened during the crime of whatever Jeffrey did, and they didn't talk about like what happened to the relatives of the victim, like did they do something about it. Like they were too into the fiction, and people were actually like making like weirdly they were making Jeffrey Dahmer as if they're like
Like an icon.
yeah, an icon, or like they're making like fan fiction about him, and it was like, just why you're romanticizing
Yeah,
a
somebody's
murderer.
probably gonna dress up as Jeffrey Dahmer
Oh,
for
did last year.
Halloween.
Yeah, some,
Ooh,
Or, like, you know,
yeah,
other
that's
serial killers.
there it is, insensitivity basically.
Yeah. They're not, I mean, you could dress up as a killer that's not a real person
Yeah, that's true.
if you really want to,
yeah.
Very.
but don't be Dahmer.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
actual fictional characters, because Dahmer
Yeah.
is not a fictional character. You could have just been someone else, you know.
And yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I think I've noticed true crime. I have a few things here, but we can see that true crime and just like the sensational, like the media circus thing has been around for a long time. And like whenever a scandal happens, especially if it's some violent crime, people will always latch onto it. But I think um, uh, starting with quarantine during the pandemic, I think that's when everything started to rise. I think everything went into the right place, you know. Like we all have a lot of free time now, and like spooky, scary podcasts on Spotify simultaneously.
Yeah.
reach
Yeah,
its
that's
peak.
true.
So like I think and of course like Netflix made a whole thing about their true crime docus. And I think now with Dahmer and all the other stuff, I think we're slowly seeing that going from just documentary quote unquote journalism to actually depicting it as a movie, but like taking which you know depicting something as a movie, inevitably you have to do creative liberties. And so that's where the issue lies with true crime, especially if the victims and or killer are still alive. So we will talk about that, which moves on to my first thing. Um, what are your opinions on like movies, stories based on a true story? So not a biography, but like a fictionalized retelling in general. Lang. It doesn't have to be true crime.
Hmm.
I feel like this is like a case to case
Yeah.
basis. Because, like, if you erase too much or you change too much,
How about
that
like
just depends.
Hacksaw Ridge, the one Miss
Ooh.
Hazel let us watch, because yeah, they made it. I don't know about the true story, because that's why like I just watched the movie and I was like, is it everything like accurate, or is it just like the basis of what the Americans saw? Because it's just based on one person's life, so you can never know
Yeah.
what happened to like the Japanese.
Yeah, I do wonder, like, it's based on Desmond Dawes. He's not alive anymore, but like I do wonder what he would think about the movie, because I feel like it's like a movie about a pacifist, except it's still like really, you can
It's
like
pro-war, yeah.
you still, it's still glorifying violence. It's still very gory, and it's like it feels like the movie is trying to portray like America isn't all that violent.
Yeah.
Like, we're not like, war. But then there's so many contradictions in the movie where, like, he's like, I'm not gonna shoot a gun. And then you just see
Yeah.
the battlefield is like really bloody.
I
He's just one
mean,
person,
yeah.
and everybody else is shooting their guns.
He did like his job as a medic,
Mm.
and like he did not only like save the Americans, he also saved like some
Yeah, he did.
Japanese, even though some of them didn't actually live anymore.
Mm-mm.
But as one person, there is a lesson to it. But like the whole other story of like
Yeah.
not just Desmond, but like the war itself, it's like very contradicting if it is like a good story to tell.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think with Hacksaw Ridge and Patch Adams, another movie we watched
Yeah.
for class. The thing with movies based on real life events, movies have for the last 100 years been the most popular art form humanity has ever had, and it's incredibly influential. No one
Yeah.
will think of Hunter Adams and not think of Robin Williams. No one will think of Dawes and not think of Andrew Garfield. Whatever movie um, uh, is telling their story will be their legacy,
Yeah.
inaccuracies and all. This is how like myths
Mm-mm.
came to be. This was also what I wrote for my cultural studies. I talked about the two movies about Elvis and Priscilla, where
Ooh.
yeah, and it was like, and I had issues on both movies because it's just impossible to condense a whole human being
Yeah.
into a movie. And again, with how influential movies are, in like 50 years, no people will watch Elvis more than they'll read a biography about Elvis.
Yeah.
So a lot of the nuances get stripped away. And like I think that's a big issue. That's why I personally really don't like biopics a lot. Because not only they also because it's a Hollywood movie and they want to sell tickets, they make a story like for example music biopics, they make it the most formulaic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Exaggerated, yeah.
Yeah, or not even exaggerated.
Or
They
they
just
take out the flaws of the person.
or just they take out anything interesting like with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
The members of Queen were already friends. They didn't meet at like a club somewhere.
Ooh, yeah.
Pero like meeting people at like a gig and then forming a band, that's a cliche. That's people know that cliche and it will
And
get
people don't
people.
actually know that.
Exactly.
I took that for like
Yes.
the.
Because like
Yeah, I didn't know that.
why would that be a lie? You know? But it makes for a better Hollywood story.
Yeah.
Make it interesting.
That's just the power of visual stimulus. It's always the strongest. It's so like everything else, like what we hear, what we read. If we see it on a screen, it's so much more powerful, and we unconsciously take it for a fact.
Yeah, they want to prolong the narrative
Yeah.
to make it appealing. I don't know. I don't understand Hollywood anymore.
So bring it back to true crime movies. It's even like more complicated because it costs lives. Like,
Yeah.
the real event cost lives. So I'm not in the industry. I don't know like
Neither.
Yet.
thank you. Yeah. Oh my god.
Hey, you gotta gas up my people.
He's just trying to exploit us.
It's just
But
trying to
anyway,
pass gas.
they
Just left
probably
out a fart joke.
what?
She just made a fart joke and laughed.
But he laughed too. It's fine, Meg. Just
I didn't
continue.
hear it.
Continue.
I lost my train of thought.
You're not in the industry, you don't know how it works.
Oh yeah. But the industry is more on like it's built on a business model. So I guess it cares more about making money. And
Marketing.
yeah. So I heard I never watched the show, but the Jeffrey Dahmer show, They didn't ask for permission from the families of the victims, and it's if you imagine like losing someone to a serial killer, and then he's suddenly really like he's made popular, and he's become a pop cultural figure, and you see like you're like somebody I read somewhere where she was like, I don't need to watch the show because I lived it. And like the show capitalized on her trauma without even telling her that they were gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys know, before the famous Titanic movie, there were a bunch of movies about the Titanic, and it came out at times where survivors of the Titanic could watch it.
Mm.
Isn't that crazy?
And did they hate it?
It,
Did they
it's a case by
love it?
case basis, but imagine you survive a tragedy and
Yeah.
you see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Even if it's like there are tasteful versions of it, but like it would just be surreal for you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah. But the thing with asking like the people who are actually there, I think well yeah, especially with true crime, it's a very shady thing not to ask, especially the victims. But I think when we're talking about like based on real life people, but uh there have also been cases where they ask too much of the people involved to like they have too much input, especially if it's like a celebrity or like a very controversial figure or a very controversial figure. And so like uh they're depicting this very controversial figure, and then they ask the relatives and the close friends of the controversial figure, you're gonna be biased towards it. But like again, this may result in the flaws not being there, but
Yeah.
so like yeah. And I think that's what did happen with Elvis specifically. They consulted too much of his family, had too much intake, but and so like it just built up his image more. It wasn't a look into Elvis, it was a look into what we already know about Elvis. So I guess that's what Dahmer tried to do. They wanted to show the real Jeffrey Dahmer, but obviously there's a lot we keep bringing up Dahmer, but we will go more in depth later because there's a lot to say about Dahmer. But like yeah, there are a lot of other things that just make it really icky for me. But like yeah,
Have you watched it?
I watched like the first half of
Oh, okay.
the season. But like yeah, so yeah, we've discussed so far kanang what makes the Hollywood system, how it changes things to be more widespread so that it can and what that means to victims. So like we've set the groundwork here, but um uh we should also mention that a lot of true crimes um were famous before the documentaries, before the things. Like I said before, there's a media circus around it. It's already been sensationalized. Like before there were all these documentaries about Dahmer, the people were hooked on their TV screens learning about this cannibal with
Yeah.
heads in his freezer and stuff. And I think um uh we're a lot of what we're doing now is kind of critical of the media adaptation, but I think to some degree we should also be critical to how it's being reported,
Yeah.
because it really capitalizes on people's morbid interests.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like being fascinated by the killing.
Which I mean, that's human nature. Like I'm not gonna sit here and be like I wasn't fascinated, but just like the normal, like we didn't need a show because it was already treated as a show a lot of the times. Like we were like we go like especially currently, but if something grisly happens, we check on like social media what happened. Like it's like the
Yeah.
latest development. Like again, like we're just observers on a show. So like
Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of also the problem of everything, of us having access to everything, is because like we forget that these are real people. So So like it's also like the thing that movie adaptations do is like they emphasize on like fear mongering. They're like they really want to give this shock factor to people to keep them consuming the media, and people just eat it up,
Mm. Yeah.
even though like it's very exaggerated or
Yeah.
like it's not good to be showing because it actually happened.
Like I like what you said about that's the issue with being given everything, ba?
Oh.
But I think that's sort of a double-edged sword because I feel like the fact that we have everything, we can get, we have to work for it, but we can get a more clearer, accurate picture of it because everything is everywhere. But like, say in like during Jeffrey Dahmer's time,
Yeah.
you can, like, it was only through the media, like the TV reports, the newspapers, and they mold the perception of it themselves. It's like, you know, the victim's family can't go on Twitter and say this. We
Yeah.
set the record straight. Like yeah, and so it's very again like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It helps and aids it, but also makes it worse a lot of the time because, like I said, I think it's just human nature that we mess this situation up. We cannot handle
Yeah,
this
so
correctly.
we as the
As
audience
society.
should also practice some responsibility.
Mm.
Yes.
Also, like the Ted Bundy. What was the movie? It was like,
It
was a long title.
Yeah.
Yeah. The.
but yeah, like people, like especially women, they were coming out
Oh my
and being
God.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he's so hot."
Yeah.
Girl?
Wasn't it? Who's that? What's his
Zac
name?
Efron.
Zac Efron.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was part of
It's the
why he
same.
was a successful serial
Yeah.
killer was he used his charm. But you cannot. Oh my God, that's so messed
They
up.
romanticize
Yeah.
the like 'cause
Women
just
died
why?
at his hands.
Yeah.
and you're like, I would.
I don't understand women like that.
Yeah, and like
Why?
But I think that's a difficult situation, son. Okay, like you said, a big part of Ted Bundy was that he was a charming, attractive man. So like, do you not portray him as a charming, attractive man? So then you're
oh
being
yeah, that's fine.
inaccurate.
But like I mean like the women where
yeah,
they
yeah.
were
I know.
they were really like
They're defending
focused on the
him.
fact.
Like,
Yeah, they forget that like
what he like. You're just gonna talk about the outside and then
Yeah.
think about like whatever happened like before
Yeah.
you can like say that this person is actually a good person.
yeah.
Like they just looked out. It's like, oh, he's cute. He's handsome. Oh, okay, yeah. Murderer? Nah, I don't think so. That's basically what they meant. Like what they said too. It's like,
Do you think the filmmakers are at fault for that? That they chose Zac
No.
Efron?
No.
no, I don't think so. But
As
they were
viewers.
wrong to like, how do you call this? Depict him as a good person, kind of, because of the way that they, how do you call this? They represented the murderer himself in like in a movie, like just what we talked about, like Dahmer, and the new one, Brothers, right?
Yeah, the Menendez brothers. Oh,
Yeah.
that one. I haven't even checked up on that
But
one.
that
I
is a
read that.
different story, because the Menendez I believe that the Menendez brothers, yes, they killed their parents, but it was
Do you know about this case?
of how do you call this? It was because of
They were abusive towards them.
yeah, like they had enough of their abusers, and the mental and physical strength that they had to pile up to all these bad influences and bad feelings. It's just
Did they?
That's a very
They killed their parents?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a
because-
very long story short. There's a lot of things that like they did kill their parents. They were abused, and then they did boast and spend the money afterwards. So it's a very complicated thing.
That
But like this is what I mean. Even before Monster, even before the movies and the documentaries, the journalism the media depiction of it already skewed the how people look at the case. Like immediately people were seeing the Menendez brothers as like these spoiled brats that were crying crocodile tears.
Yeah, that reminds me of Eileen Wuornos.
Also
She's
that,
like one of the female serial killers, and like it reminds me of that because like her and those brothers, you can like think that they aren't really. I'm gonna say something controversial, but like, weren't they just doing self-defense?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think too.
Yeah.
Because before this, the brothers show, is it a show
yeah,
or a
it's the
movie?
second season of Monster. It's Dahmer was the first
Oh,
one.
it's a
This-
show.
It's a
Yeah,
show.
this is the
Okay, but before that was made, I didn't watch that show yet. Like I knew about the Menendez brothers and what they have done and what their father did and their mother did to them. And then that just showed my perspective of them without watching the show because that's reality already. And that's just I don't know. I don't know how the show went, but basically from my perspective it's just yeah, they were just yeah, self-defense. And imagine you being a child and then their parents just like sexually abuse them, and then it's just too much for
Yeah.
a
Anyone
child.
would
And
break.
then when you grow up, it was even said that the Menendez brothers had like the mental mind of a child at 16 and 18. What's their age gap? I forgot their age gap. But yeah.
it's a very complicated thing. Man. Like yeah, like even before, like again, even before the show and the documentary, how it was reported, like late night talk show hosts will be joking about these spoiled brats who kill their kids. It's like for a local example, do you remember Christine Daquera, the nursing student who
Yeah.
had an aneurysm, and then it's unclear if she was raped or not.
Oh.
It was in December 2022. And yeah, it was again like conspiracy theory hat on. But I it was very weird that the PNP very quickly concluded that it was rape, and then like as things went on, like medical practitioners, mga foreigners started putting doubt that there was ever a rape involved, that maybe it was just a party gone bad. But like that's the thing that like how the police report it, how the media reports it, and how it just spreads through our own individual biases. That's it adds to this again, like it's like we're watching a show. Like these people aren't people anymore.
Yeah,
like,
in
yeah.
that case, I don't know about that story about her, but the case of like having someone to witness it there for you is different from what the media is saying. So you can't just like, jump into conclusions. But for me, that the theory of the Menendez brothers not being like able to speak for themselves, there was literally the family who witnessed it, like not the parents, like the other family, their aunt testified for them. And like I know that they murdered some their parents, but I know murder is wrong, but that is a case that is a case that is to be how do you call this? It is a case to be recognized by the judge and like the jury, because you can't just say that oh, they did this because they were petty. No, they weren't. They did it for their safety and they had enough. And for what's her name? I'm sorry.
Christine
The
Daquera. Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but if there were someone else there to witness it for her, then maybe there would be justice served for her.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. So
Yeah, but the
it's
thing
really
is, like,
complicated.
it's just a very systemic problem, or like can't really rely on the justice system.
Yeah.
and the media is always gonna
Say
not
something.
completely give the right picture.
Yeah.
So
The court of public opinion.
yeah,
Like I said, we all come in with our individual biases.
yeah,
It makes you uncomfortable, like for a child to not only kill their parents but show no remorse. And then like a promiscuous woman who has had a sexual history dying in a
Yeah.
party. So like we assign already before we even know the details. Just from those we assign from our previous biases, man. And so I think although we're criticizing kanang mga adaptations and documentaries, we have to admit that they're not the root problem. That like this is a
Yeah.
whole, this is just a societal thing. This is how
It's
society
literally, yeah, it's literally victim blaming
works.
though.
Yeah.
It's like you don't experience what they have and like what they've gone through, so you can't really say other stuff other than them being at fault. Thou, something like that. It's just
What I hated about the Menendez brothers is people's insistence that they weren't the perfect victim and that they fought back.
yeah.
You know,
Like,
that they weren't.
What do you mean by that? Like,
Yeah,
are you
they've-
serious?
And again, they didn't show any remorse, so it just built in these people that they were like ungrateful, and it made me so mad because like, what is a perfect victim? That doesn't. It's like with Amber Heard that like, she's a victim that fought back, and so she's not
Yeah.
a victim now. Like that doesn't make
It's-
sense. It's very depressing.
Because people don't think about the mental state. Like, not everyone understands that, but imagine being stuck in like an environment that's been so bad for years, even as a child. You can't just say that there's no remorse. It's just the feeling of being numb to something that you cannot control anymore, and people don't understand that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just makes they think that, oh, being numb is wrong. No, not really. There's so much mental war going on inside that you don't know. So you can't just assume that something is wrong for not feeling, how do you call this, the way that you think that this person should be feeling. Different perspective, really, but
It, like
No, you first.
like do you notice like the news that get big, like that get turned into like movie adaptations or whatever? They're like most of them is like people getting murdered by strangers. The true crime, like the reality of these crimes, is like people get hurt by people they know and loved and trusted. That's what happens like more commonly. But yeah, like people like Jeffrey Dahmer has a show.
And how else can we deal with the societal flaw but capitalize on it with Netflix originals, guys? And so yeah, that's the thing. We're moving on to specifically talking about documentaries, which
Yeah.
supposedly are journalistic and one, but like again, these are made for profit for like Hulu and Disney and Netflix and stuff.
yeah,
So again,
Disney?
yeah,
Disney,
Disney
yeah.
owns
Oh,
everything. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So they're just this really just amplifies everything. Like I said, like we didn't need a show because we already treated these cases as a show. But now that it's a show, now it's even more it's even more separated from the reality of these people.
Now that like
Continue, go.
now that we're talking about this, do you feel like they should have just left it alone?
They should have just left it alone. Like, they just shouldn't. It's not necessary to try to relive someone's past. It's just because it's reality. It's not as if they made it into fiction. They made it into a documentary movie that people will think that this is actually what happened, when it really isn't.
Yeah, I'm like recalling. Do you know the podcast on Spotify called My Favorite Murder?
Yeah.
It was really popular, and then it got canceled like a few years ago. And I'm thinking, I mean, the obvious reason why they got canceled was because like the title is My Favorite Murder. And like I've listened to a
Yeah.
few episodes and they kind of like they there's not really much compassion towards the victims. It's like they dissect the true crime and they're like, whoa, they're like really mesmerized by like,
Oh,
wait,
they
that happened?
romanticize murders?
They kind of like, it's kind of like they what people do with all these shows, like they consume it as if it's fiction.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like it's canceled.
Yeah.
What do you think about like the phenomenon of like most I mean, from what I've noticed, it's mostly women who kind of not enjoy but like indulge in the true crime genre,
That's true.
right? Or is it
I think I don't know.
From what I hear, like literally, there was one time I was in a call with friends, and then my friend and his girlfriend were talking, and then the girl was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna watch true crime documentaries or like what happened during the crime on YouTube," and then the guy was like, "Why do girls enjoy this?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Is it only girls? Like, really? Is it true? Like, is it just a?"
I've never noticed that. Maybe because I'm a guy and I like crime, but I never noticed that.
maybe you're not a guy?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
But like, okay, so can I talk about the poem?
You're reading. Okay.
Okay, so the poet who wrote the poem that I will read by the end of this episode, she has a whole poetry book, that's surround like on around the topic of true crime, and she gives like an introduction in the book where she's like a lot of women, like their lives are shaped by this fear because like you know, we're more likely to be victims of violence, and it's kind of it ended up in like women consuming true crime as like some kind of catharsis, I guess, where like you're preparing yourself for this very possible event. I mean, like the
That's sad.
likelihood might be like happening to you, but yeah, I feel like that's it because like fear is such a present emotion in women, and so we it's kind of like you feed the anxiety. And how do you cope with this anxiety? You read everything you can, watch everything you can, listen to everything you can. It doesn't help, but
Nah,
it's like to
It's-
stave the fear.
Do you think that's true? Do you think that's the motivating factor that a lot of women, that's why a lot of women like true crime? It's like watching a zombie movie and preparing for a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, because like yeah, because we are a woman walking down the street at night, and you have all these like safety measures in your head where like you're reviewing things like somebody needs to know where I am. I need to have like pepper spray or something. I need to walk fast if somebody comes near me. All those things, and so if that's like the things going on normally in a woman's head, then yeah, a pastime would be consuming true crime.
but yeah, that in itself is sad because fear instilled in someone just because like, oh, someone passed by me, I should like be ready,
Yeah,
feel
you're like
defensive,
holding your
like
keys between your fingers.
yeah, just like you have your own bubble, and then you just wanna like this is my safe space, and then if I feel threatened, I have to like be ready, and that's sad for a woman because it happens too much.
Yeah. Yeah, but going back to what you asked if they should have just been left at place. I think what we're specifically criticizing here is documentaries that just do it for profit. You know, they don't
Mhm.
they don't really empathize. But there have been a lot of cases where true crime documentaries have set the record straight on a very messy story.
Mm.
Like there's this one case I know, like 2003, there was a man walked into a bank with a bomb on his collar, and then he robbed the bank. And then he said like, someone is making me rob a bank or else this bomb will go
Oh,
off. And then
but
like
he put it
Ooh.
himself.
no.
Oh.
Throughout the whole investigation, they found out who was uh, the masterminds and stuff, and they've somehow spun this into saying that the victim who robbed the bank with the collar was in on it.
Oh.
But then like a recent documentary pointed out like all the contradictions and all the things.
Ooh. Yeah, so that's where it comes
Yeah.
in helpful
Yeah.
because like
Actual
maybe like
journalism.
cold cases
Yeah.
where like no everybody's forgotten about it, but then you bring it back to life and then you see all these extra information that might have been missed before. So that's where it comes in helpful.
Oh yeah, that's right. Unsolved
Yeah.
mysteries is a whole subgenre here, and I think I mean they can be just as cynical for profit, but I think that's a good thing of like keeping cases alive.
Doesn't BuzzFeed have that? Unsolved
Yeah,
Mysteries?
yeah.
I love that. Like they didn't okay, there was not much fiction in it. They just like talked about it like a podcast.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it because it was actually interesting and then they just put in information that was gathered after
Yeah.
it was made into like a cold case.
Yeah, because in their mind, they're doing this to have some hope that possibly maybe it will be solved. While some other true crime cases that aren't about unsolved mysteries just try to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if the very, very big like factor that you need to consider ethics of adapting true crime, I think the question you need to be asking yourself is like, what is your goal? If you're putting
Yeah.
it out there in the public, like, what is it? Like, you're trying to spread awareness? Are you clearing things up? Are you, because like, if you want to talk about true crime, why aren't you talking about like, because it's usually the things that get like pursued, like really investigated and stuff. These are, I guess, like important people.
Yeah.
What about like sex workers who just get murdered and they just like get forgotten somewhere on a ditch?
Yeah. That was going back to Jeffrey Dahmer. That's what had Jeffrey Dahmer not been a cannibal, had Jeffrey Dahmer not severed these people, had he just been a quote unquote normal serial killer,
Yeah.
I doubt that there would be a lot of attention because he primarily killed gay men.
I
Yeah.
see. Ooh, that's also part of
Yeah.
it. The news doesn't really cover victims who are like transgender or in the West, maybe like they don't really cover people of color. Yeah, like it reminds me of the poetry book I was talking about earlier it's called Life of the Party. And she has a poem about this like really popular true crime. It's been decades and it hasn't been solved yet. John Benet Ramsey.
Ooh.
Like she was.
I don't like that
It
case so
gives
much.
me.
I don't like it either.
It's very, very, very strange that like she died in her own home with all these like weird things around her, and her whole family seems to be like, yeah, like they can't really like the family is a suspect, but also they can't prove it, and like she was a beauty queen, like she's blonde haired, blue eyed kind of white girl, and yeah, it was like the media really like sorry for the term like they like
It's okay.
pursued it to death.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, and like what about the other victims? Like a lot of people what about the other girls who got murdered and they didn't get their screen time?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also another fault in mainstream media is like they give attention to the dominant groups.
That's like this is a lot of layers. It's very complicated. Like when you said that, I thought of this one case where it's in America. I forget which city, but a bunch of black children were getting killed, and there was an investigation, and it came down to two suspects: a black man who would be a serial killer who is kind of sus, or the Klan, the KKK, and there have
Oh my
and
God.
there I don't have a definitive opinion on what it could be because that man is very weird. I could very clearly see him be a serial killer, but it's the fact that the police so quickly denied the Klan involvement at all. That it was not a racial one. Like this is just black on black violence, guys. There's no systemic racism here.
Yeah.
It rubbed people the wrong way. And so, but like again, I don't. That guy is a creep. He could be a serial killer, but like there's again, that's another thing. The media plays into the whole thing. It plays with our biases and our preconceived notions and stuff. So like yeah. And yeah, and again, like even we just talked about how like sometimes when especially when it's like unsolved, maybe the thesis is like moral, like they want it solved. But also an episode of Unsolved Mysteries was about Kurt Cobain's suicide that they were saying was a murder by Courtney Love, maybe or not. See, that's the whole. This is the whole thing, especially with America and Hollywood. You can never tell if it's for profit or for virtue, or sometimes both and sometimes neither. That's the thing. But like, yeah, I think a good note to end on is what Meg said earlier, that when you're consuming all these true crime things, you have to see why they're doing it. If it's out of the investigative drive, if it's empathetic, if it's merely exploitative, or like in many cases it can be all three. But like,
Ooh, but also another thing is like the reason why people kind of like glorify these killers is because the lens, I mean, of course the lens would be on them because like they're the one doing the crime, but shouldn't you also honor the people who died? Like where's the empathy over the victims?
Exactly. Yeah.
like have you guys heard of a lot of these serial killer nicknames? Like the Night Stalker, like
The Zodiac Killer.
the Zodiac
Oh,
Killer,
the Zodiac
yeah.
Killer.
Like they call him like the Nightcrawler or the Vampire of Hollywood. Or,
Jack the Ripper.
yeah, Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
why,
also unsolved, right?
why,
Jack the
like,
Ripper.
why must you give them such cool badass names? These are losers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They kill people and they just like, oh, let's make a name for him, like they're a superhero or something.
Like I was watching a video talking about serial killers, and he said this exact thing too. Like he was so mad that these, frankly, pretty pathetic people, were given such badass names, and he
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
to one serial killer called the Grinder Killer, and he was like, okay, that should be the standard. That's lame.
Yeah, make
That's
a
also-
lame name
yeah.
for them.
That's
Because
what fuels
The
the
mythology of
weird
it.
worship.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you give them these names.
Yeah.
They're killers.
Psychopath.
Yeah, also like another thing is that people who are psychopaths are born with psychopath
Yeah.
brains.
Mm.
Like if like physically they are very different, like their brain scans aren't the same as
Dahmer was yeah.
the normal people. Shout out to Julia. She told me about this. She also gave us this nice place to record our episode
you,
in.
Julia.
Shout out, Julia.
So she told me that like basically psychopath brains lack this kind of like basic human decency that the rest of us have. And so you can never understand what goes on in their brains because they're missing a very vital part of being human. And there's also like so yeah, like you can't rationalize like how could he do this? Why did he do that? He's a psychopath. You can't understand. You'll never know. But
That's the thing too with Dahmer. They were like defending him. Oh, because he's a psychopath. You can't just like
Yeah.
point fingers that he is really guilty of all these when he's not feeling
Mm-hmm.
when he's not feeling like their pain. I was like, but he still killed someone. You don't have to
That's
romanticize
also
him.
like the weird line because like legally, right?
Yeah.
You're guilty of a crime if like you did it consciously,
Yeah.
but they're not of sound mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you like what is I don't know. I don't know about law.
Mm.
But yeah. So like psychopaths are psychopaths. They're not fully human and there's also like high functioning psychopaths
Yeah.
and most of them go on to be CEOs.
Yeah. Most of our
Bosses?
most of our
Yeah.
politicians are
Yeah.
psychopaths,
God.
and they aren't serial killers, so, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
some of them maybe.
Or they just become
Or so we know.
sociopaths.
We don't know what they do in
and
their
just
free
psycho-
time.
Like, yeah.
I just thought of something.
Yeah, do share.
Oh my god. The whole Diddy situation.
Oh god.
That's
know.
crazy.
You don't know what with P Diddy?
Can you enlighten?
Oh my god.
Do you know like
I
why
don't-
people have been saying thank you, Beyonce?
Why?
I don't like that we're about to tell you this for the first
Oh
time.
no.
People might not know.
No, people know.
Am I the only one?
Yeah, I
think
think so.
Queer seer, do you know about the P Diddy situation? He
See?
does.
Should I just say thank you, Beyonce, and move on?
No, that's I think that's in poor taste now.
Oh, all
After
right.
After what we've just talked about.
I'm sorry.
Do
I
you
know
who-
nothing.
Do you know who P Diddy is as a person?
I do not know.
Do you know the first line of TikTok by Kesha? Woke up in the morning feeling like P Diddy.
Ooh, what is it?
P Diddy is a rapper. He does bad things. He's been exposed to
Very,
the bad
very
things.
bad things.
What bad things?
Okay, so this was always a case before in America that P. Diddy is like, he has these parties, like lavish parties, where he invites celebrities, like famous people from Hollywood, and then they just like have their own private party, right? And then when Diddy got arrested, they had to investigate everything. They got so much information that they haven't gotten in years. They saw, okay, one was a lot of baby oil. Like, not even just like this much. It's like a whole room of baby oil. And they brought this into like court and they were like, why do you have so much baby oil? And then the lawyer was like, oh, it's just stock. Stock for what? And then another thing is, there's a
You're
cave.
assuming is correct.
There's a cave under the mansion. So people can just like go in and out without being seen. Isn't that weird? Are you seriously too secretive about this party that you have a big hole under your mansion for people to pass? Yes.
All right, okay.
And another thing is, you know how people like worship Beyonce a lot?
You're explaining the meme. Okay. Okay. Fine. On a lighter note, explain to me.
I'm just gonna talk about that because basically people like recognize Beyonce a lot because for some reason they make her like someone to recognize for your success, and if not, something bad will
Yeah, I
happen
see
to
that.
you.
Yeah, every awards show.
Yeah,
They're like,
and the thing
thank you,
is-
Beyonce.
P Diddy didn't.
Jay-Z and Beyonce are always like so close to these private parties with P.
I
Diddy.
see.
So there is a connection.
Uh-huh.
And not only that, there is a list of celebrities.
It's like the Epstein files.
What?
It's like the Epstein list.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And all these celebrities are basically made as how do you call this? They're basically made as how do you call this? Sorry, I got distracted. Suspects, yeah.
Yeah. It's like you were at the parties with the weird
You
oil
saw
in the cave.
everything and they didn't like address it or anything. They just
See, the thing is, people with that much power, They
Exactly.
do
That's
the
why they
weirdest
hide
things.
they hide everything because they have the money and they have the power to hide it.
Which brings me back to high functioning psychopaths. They like walk among us and they have a lot of power is because they are psychopaths. It's because like they're willing to do certain things that a normal person wouldn't because like they'd have more morals. But psychopaths don't. That's why like they're billionaires and they're P Diddy or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In conclusion, thank you, Beyonce.
Thank you, Beyonce.
I'm scared for my life.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Beyonce.
Thank you. All right. Let's
Oh
move
my
on to our
God, yeah.
segments, you guys.
Yeah, next,
So,
next.
This
Yes.
is 1 minute headlines where we're outside now. Don't question it. The headline from international, national, regional, and university news, and give our rapid fire 1 minute reactions.
Heck yeah, let's go.
International, Israel and its Iran allied foes vow more war after Hamas leader's death. He's dead. How many more people do you
Make
need
it stop.
to die?
Make it stop. Are you guys
What?
serious? Are you
What?
Your
stupid?
war
There's
was.
no
What
more
is happening?
Palestine to
What
You
are
said
you
that-
doing?
You said the war was
There's
gonna end in
cra-
like
You're
a month.
crazy for that.
It's
What are
been a
you
whole
doing?
year.
Why are
You have like the most expensive
are there
military.
people
Why is
who
this
are
war going on
still
for over a year?
It's not
going
war, 'cause it's
after
not
this?
equal. You're
Like,
basically,
why
like,
do you even?
flattening
Are you defending the
Palestinians.
Israel people? No,
Yeah,
you're
try-
not.
National news. Vice President Sara Duterte, Marcos doesn't know how to be a president. I will dig up your father's corpse and throw it to the West Philippine Sea.
Are you seriously saying that now? What is wrong with you?
It's so sad seeing a friendship die out, but it's also
Ah,
sweet.
unity,
Yeah, national
I can't say that.
politics is just high school drama.
I can't say that. Okay, yeah, just whatever, man.
Regional news. PRO7 reassigns over 100 cops with relatives running in 2025 polls. You guys suck. Oh
What are
my
you
god.
doing?
This is regional Cebu City. Our mayor got suspended for nepotism and then you pull this crap.
You're only realizing that now? What are people on? It's been decades. Are you serious?
And finally, university news happening now. Local farmer and fisherfolk are selling their produce at the University of the Philippines, Cebu today, October 16, for the Pagsakan Stand with Farmers and Fisherfolk Agro Fair. The fair highlights their calls against land grabbing, militarization, reclamation, and market inequality, amongst other injustices. We are
Yes.
pro
Yeah,
farmers.
you hear that, Vilya? Yeah, suck it up.
We love the working class.
We do.
All right. And before we end,
Oh no!
and before we end and we hear a short spoken word performance, every episode each of us give out one recommendation to whatever we want to recommend at the end of the episode. And I'll start. I recommend Silogan ni Gian. It's very good and
Oh.
it's very
Classic.
worth the price.
I love it.
For a specific meal. Try the sisiglog with extra garlic rice.
Yep.
Meg,
I recommend taking your allergic reaction seriously because allergies can kill you. Don't be like me who took 3 whole years to get her allergies checked up.
And what can I recommend? I wasn't ready for this. I actually forgot about this. If you're a student who's near IT Park, yeah, you should go to the food court instead of paying for more expensive stuff out in the open, whatever. It's literally Filipino classic foods, and they're good.
yeah, they are.
Yes,
Yeah.
IT Park, Ayala Central Block Food Court.
Nice.
Yep.
So thank you for tuning in to the second episode of LITOK. We will try to have one next month as well, if the circumstances allow it, but we will try. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And
Bye-bye.
to end this, we have our very own Megan Bulliser. She's performing a poem that she kept bringing up, entitled "She Lit Up Every Room She Entered."
Let's go.
Goodbye,
Meg.
everybody.
Bye bye.
She lit up every room she walked into by Olivia Gatwood. She lit up every room she walked into, but never asked to be the center of attention. Just came in, always with a smile on her face, excited to see the people who loved her, which was everyone she ever met. And did I mention she was always happy? Never ever ever was she in a bad mood. In fact, I don't think anyone ever saw her not smiling. I heard from a girl at church that she actually had a smile surgically implanted into her face. I mean, just the most bubbly, cheerful girl you've ever met. Everyone had a crush on her, but no one actually dated her, which made her that much more desirable. She was celibate, I heard, but somehow knew exactly how to make everyone want her. She was like that. Such a bright future, so bright we could barely even look at it without permanently damaging our eyesight. She could have done anything she wanted. A nurse, a lawyer, a silent wife. Talk about a girl with goals. And on top of all that, she was a track star, volunteered at the soup kitchen on weekends. It had never disappointed her parents. Honestly, come to think of it, there was no one in the world who deserved this less than she did. Of all people, I can think of 12 people who deserve this more than she did. It's almost like a sacrifice. Maybe the world just didn't deserve her. Maybe none of us did. So wholesome, so vibrant, so alive, so obedient, so demure, so petite, so tender, so strong, so pretty, so prude, so brave, so quiet, so butchered, so blue. I guess the silver lining is that now the bar isn't so high for the rest of us. We all look better with her dead. Just kidding. Did you hear? She was clutching the fence when they found her. She fought like hell, apparently. It's a shame it was my birthday party and I forgot to invite her. It's a shame no one heard her screaming. The music was just so loud and we were all singing along.